I am recording. So, good morning to everyone again. It is just wonderful. Look at that. We've got 20 people in our discussion today. So let's do a very quick check-in, and I'm not even gonna call on you. Let's just go for it and just chime in and let us know who you are, where you're from, and maybe what your role is. Because I do want to get into, if you saw my email from earlier this morning, I think it's an excellent question. Unfortunately, Julia Rodi cannot be with us this morning, but she had asked us to talk about the governor's announcement, I guess, last week. I know all summer long you've been sort of anticipating this July 27th that got moved to July 30th announcement as it's affected your school district's plans. And so she asked if we could talk about that today, and for you to share your perspectives about that, and especially what that means for your district's planning. So if you don't mind, once we all check in, I'll open that question to you all. But please, also, this is for everyone. And so if you have, we'll see how the conversation goes, but I don't want anybody to feel that they're, the questions that they have or insights that they came here to discuss today also would get lost. So if you want to send those to me individually, or just wait as we're going and bring those up, but please don't let us, I don't want you to feel not discussed. So anyway, so with that, I'm just going to start you off and ask Trina. Trina, would you just start us off with a quick introduction of who you are?
Sure. I'm Trina Olson. I work in Prior Lake Savage Schools as a parent educator and an early childhood teacher and a developmental screener.
Great.
I'm Ellen Hafner, parent educator in Northfield.
I'm Carrie Fisher from the Wilmer Public Schools, and I, similar to Trina, I do early childhood family ed. I'm the early childhood teacher. I do developmental screening. I was on here earlier in the summer. I've been taking a little media break and everything from all the chaos that's been going on, I think I was hoping things would get better, but I'm back to reality now. And
I'm Shelley Doran. I'm a parent educator from Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan.
I'm Karen Zimmerman, parent educator, work with Shelley in Rosemont, Egan, Apple Valley.
I'm Shelley Paterka Colweiss. I'm a parent educator in Inver Grove Heights, 199.
I'm Joy Walker. I teach parent ed in Edina.
Shannon Rader. I teach parent ed and early childhood in Hopkins.
I'm Cinnamon Tyson. I'm from Chisago Lakes. I do parent ed, a little bit of ECFE, and screening.
I'm Lucy Bauer. I am a parent educator in the St. Cloud 742 school district.
I am Jen Jaros, ECFE coordinator in Duluth, Minnesota.
And I'm another Jen. I'm Jennifer Wenner, and I'm a parent educator in the Minnetonka district.
I'm Cassie Botcher. I'm a parent ed in Austin, Minnesota. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
I'm Amber Shuby. I'm preschool at UCFE for the Medelia Public Schools.
Well, was that just on my end? That was weird. Let's see. Tracy. Henry?
Sorry. I'm folding laundry and listening. Early childhood director in Medelia, wear a lot of different hats.
Wonderful. Okay. And Sarah Fritsch?
Susan, can you?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I'm Sarah Fritsch. I'm from Big Lake. Early Parent over here. Do all that fun stuff. This is the first time I've been on. Yay, thanks. What's the YouTube channel? What's the
It's a playlist, so all of our
talking?
videos, the video recordings from our discussions are posted over on the playlist. And so as we're talking today, I'll put that link in there. Also, if any of you are new to us today, please, and you would like to be, I have a little email list, and we'll send out reminders and that sort of thing. So if you would like to be on that, please put your name and your email address in the chat window, and I'll make sure that you get added to that. Okay, thank you. Anybody left? Haven't introduced yourself?
Susan, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, yes. I'm Brenda Liebert, and I work in the Edina School District as a parent educator and children's teacher.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Brenda. All right, well, let's just go to it. So, deeply anticipating the governor's announcement. It came out last week. How did it go for you? Responses from your school districts, individual. Let's talk about that.
Well, we got a email the next day saying we were going to a hybrid model in 196. So we had set up they had set up the catalog and things like that for several different options. So I'm not sure where the catalog's at, but we're anticipating going in a hybrid model.
And Shelley, was that then different? That moved ahead based on the governor's announcement, or that's pretty much what you'd planned?
Well, I think that we're planning for everything. I know that our groups were, but because of the cases in Dakota County and the way that the governor, gave the recommendations, they went straight to hybrid. So I think the school is planning on 2 days for each, for each child goes 2 days, in cohort A and cohort B. I think like Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday. I don't know exactly what the days are for the elementary schools. And we've talked about doing where, if there's 8 kids in your class, like 4 families come 1 week and the other families join on Zoom, and then those other 4 families come the following week and the other families join on Zoom. So I think that's what we're looking at. Karen, you can agree with me or disagree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
How will you guys say? Because that's what we're talking about, is like either smaller groups doing that kind of thing, or looking at. But some of those families have bigger numbers of children, or like, how will you control your register? Like, I'm just trying to picture how you will. You don't have the answer yet, do you?
I don't think we know. That's not that exactly. That's not part of what we'll do, I guess. But yeah, our groups will be smaller, and there'll be some strict regulations we'll follow, from my understanding. And
it's also, how we're handling the whole pandemic situation will be in the brochure. Like Shelley said, it's in print right now. So right. when that hits, it always hits online before we ever see a hard copy of it anyway. So that should be available within, pretty soon, I would think, within a couple of weeks. And it'd be a good thing it'd be a good resource to go to look at and see, is this how we want to do it, or is this how do we want to do it differently, whatever. So.
And which school are you in again?
196, so it's Rosemont, Egan, Apple Valley.
Okay, I think I have looked at your brochure before.
Shelley, are you doing your whole parent time on Zoom, so then those that aren't there that day then can join you on Zoom?
So my understanding is that there'll be some parent-child time, and then there'll be separation and going to the parent room with like the 4 families that are there that week, and then the other families can join on Zoom.
Oh.
Because we have smart boards in our parent room, so we can just pull it up that way. I mean, that's our plan. Obviously, things could change, but.
And parent-child time is very short. And it's really mostly just a group time. It's not the interaction as much as we'd like it to be, but that's because we have to keep our time short, our time together short, and it's one of the pieces that moved.
Are you just deciding on making the time short? Is that your own choosing, or was that somewhere in a guideline? Because I mean, our very preliminary planning, we're keeping all our classes the same time, but everything I'm hearing is that everyone's shortening. So I'm just curious how you got to that decision.
I wasn't on the committee. Maybe Shelley knows more about this than I, but there is a piece of the amount of time that people are exposed to each other makes a difference. And I think they wanted to keep that under an hour. So I don't know, what do you want to add, Shelley?
No, I don't know why that decision was exactly made, and I'm sure it's for that risk of exposure for, longer periods of time.
Yeah.
And there is some classes that are being offered completely online as well. And you can sign up for any class and do it virtually. You don't ever have to come into the building if you're not comfortable doing it.
So are you guys then doing parent-child time for 30 minutes and parent time for 30 minutes? Are you making your entire class 1 hour, or are you just...
The entire classes right now are set for 1 hour. Yeah. And I think that the first, 15 minutes, I think,
That's the circle
is going to be
time,
parent-child circle time, and then we'll try to separate and do the rest separating.
Are
Obviously.
other districts planning on doing a shortened class time too? Just thumbs up if you are planning on that.
We don't have our plan yet. So
well, we don't really either, but okay. Sarah's giving me a thumbs down. All right.
Wilmer hasn't told us yet what we're doing. So, but our thought is that we would shorten and do smaller classes similar to that idea. We also, we're really hoping we can do the hybrid, because we really were hoping we had a backup plan of, we were going to do outdoor classes for September and beginning of October. And then depending on how things are looking, we've also talked about doing ECFE in a box type thing, which is at the very beginning stages. So I'm not sure how that will look either, but that was another option we had looked at. But we've gotten no guidelines from Wilmer yet. I'm hoping by the end of the week. I think that might have been a frustration for a lot of our families in the Wilmer School District too, is that I think everybody really thought the governor was going to say what was going to happen and they'd have an answer. And that's not what happened, because it was left into the school districts, And I think our school district's been working on plans, but I just am not sure, I'm sure it's hard because cases keep changing and things like that. So I suppose it does make it difficult.
Well, and in Northfield, we're still waiting too. Our district has not said what they're going to do. Right now, it's looking like, judging by the model, that elementary will be full in person and middle and high school will be hybrid. And now I don't know if early childhood is going to follow that, all families in person. I really don't know how, because I don't know how fitting 12 parents and 12 kids in a classroom is smart. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get any planning of our, to say, we want to do hybrid, even though pre-K and elementary is going to have full classrooms. I think for parent safety, we should go hybrid. But I don't know. Those decisions are coming down the pike for us too.
And that's what we had talked about, was doing the smaller classes, maybe. And we do know, I think the struggle that will be in the future when things hopefully maybe improve. Right now we have a core group of families that I know there's several families that are probably, what would you call it? They're in a bubble together now, where they're spending time together, they're friends, they're, and stuff. And so, looking at that, those could potentially be the 3 or 4 families that maybe come in at one certain time and, for that hour or whatever. That was one thing we threw around too, but we definitely will probably not be doing the large class sizes that we had done in the past. But I kind of worry about, like I was saying, when this is all over with, how you'll recruit new families, because that's going to be hard, I think, unless maybe people like the new models and, maybe it will change and bring out new families, but I think there's going to be a rebuilding period when it's all done.
We're going to do online only. I typed in the chat box as well for babies, just because of that newborn
yeah.
component. But we're going to, I think I asked if we could do like an outside meet and greet, and that could be with all the classes we had talked about. Let's do outside, because that relationship building is so important as you meet the new families. So we need to build that in somehow to meet each family. Otherwise, they aren't going to come if they don't know us.
Right, exactly. And we do still have, we have a event planned here in August. We typically have done it in June. We have one of those semi-pro baseball teams, the Stingers. And so we have in the past done a books and baseball event where they got a free book and the players read to them, and then they stayed for the game and everything. But we are doing more of a drive-through type thing where they still will get their book. They're not staying for the game or anything like that. And so we are still tentatively planning that event here in August. So we'll see kind of how many people that draws in, I guess.
We've been doing a little ECFE in the park this summer. So we collaborate with the city of Big Lake here, and I had to have like a whole, I mean, of course, like the COVID plan, whatnots, one family per table per activity, and then we disinfected it, and then we had some agencies come to give info and handouts and stuff, like Help Me Grow, and the police departments came, but I put out my little poly spots to make sure everybody was 6 feet apart at those tables, and that was pretty successful. That was a good event. Outdoors, I think, is the way to go for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really hoping that we are going to be allowed to do that.
I have a question about, I saw Ellen wrote this in the chat box too about babies and what the thought is about babies being just online, because we had talked about that too. And actually, those are probably the easiest to contain and the easiest to socially distance in a room. So I'm wondering what the thought was behind doing babies just online.
Cassie started that.
I couldn't remember who started it.
So Cassie, is your audio working, Cassie?
I was reading the chat. I'm sorry. Yeah, we did that. We had good turnout for babies this spring. We had babies who we had not seen, and more people come to the online format. So I just talked to our coordinator today, and she suggested that we just start. We were going to do one online, but she suggested we do both of our classes online, just to keep people comfortable, I guess.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything in the everything.
Well, and we have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Cassie. Oh, sorry, who was talking?
Go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, Karen, sorry. So we have a newborn class that runs year round, even when there's no ECFE in the summer. It's called Baby Talk. We do it in conjunction with Public Health and the Northfield Hospital. And I went directly to Zoom when everything shut down. And then as of about a month ago, we started meeting outside our building, and I'm offering it via Zoom. I'm learning a lot about how to provide this in a way that works. I used a boom mic this week, and it was much better for my participants. But these moms are coming with their newborns because they're getting their babies weighed. So I feel like that is is probably the draw. My concern that I wrote in the chat is I am really concerned about toddler classes. Those toddlers are everywhere. If parents are following their toddlers around, even in 4, they're licking everything. I don't know how you guys are feeling about toddler classes. Because as we know, they're not great, even in a small group. We love them, but wow, so much licking. They all eat the same piece of pizza. I mean, I'm just thinking about the no shared things. How are we going to have is there going to be any toy in the classroom? I don't know. I'm just really curious what you guys are thinking.
Well, I think that's why we're sort of leaning, you know, I mean, like, I think our first choice would be to be outside and do outdoor things, you know, at the park. And then if things are still continuing not to look well, then we may have to go just to the online and, you know, maybe the ECFE in a box type thing. And, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know either. And I mean, you think about the sensory tables, I am picturing that those can be, well, they say water and soap is okay, but you know, it's like, so yeah, there's gonna be a lot of pieces missing if you,
I know that one of the things that we looked at, and I wasn't on the team that did this, but we had groups of teachers in the classroom actually doing the measuring and figuring things out. The bottom line is the kids are going to be kids, and if you're pre-K, you're pre-K, and if you put things in your mouth, you put things in your mouth, because if it doesn't go in the mouth, it doesn't go in the brain. We know that, so we want kids to allow them that space to be a child, and in a typical situation. We just watch, it's just like, you have to, okay, that one, put that one in the mouth. Let's just watch and make sure that when he drops it, somebody else doesn't pick it up. It's that constant thing. And because classes are shorter, we can do that. And also having parents do that. I know that there'll be fewer parents in the classroom because the classroom is still the same size, but you can only have so many parents in there. So it just shifts and changes from that.
and I sort of feel a little, I feel like my room's fairly decent sized. I'm probably really lucky. And if I have to remove my sensory tables, that's going to give me a lot more room. So
yeah, we're not allowed sensory tables. I think we could do sensory trays, but
yeah.
not actually the tables. So
Right,
the tables would be out of the rooms.
Yeah. So, and if you have them smaller groups, like you say, I think, it can work, but.
So I'll jump in because I'm in Karen's district and Shelley's district, and we're mailing our catalog tomorrow. I can't even believe we're doing it. Like, I feel like I have this like, oh, what have we done kind of feeling, and yet, I mean, we'll just have to shift and adjust. And so you're talking about hybrid model. We decided to simplify it. At first, we tried to put all the elements in 1 hour because we thought to be vigilant about social distancing, wearing a mask, Zooming people in, like, how could we do more than an hour? And we tried to put everything in an hour, and then it became apparent, just as you're all talking about, like, if parents are chasing their children, following their children around, following their child's lead, they're going to come in contact with other adults. We decided we wouldn't expect children to social distance, but we do expect adults to wear masks and social distance. So we're enrolling 8 families per class, and they're going to come in person every other week. So we'll have a school family A and a school family B, and we're going to do meet and greets. We're delaying the start of class till September 21st. And my own staff here might not even have all this information, but it's coming out publicly, so here we are. And then we're going to send home, we're going to send home parent-child activities, much as you would set up in the room. Like, so it wouldn't be creating a whole brand new kit. It would be 1 or 2 activities that you would have set up in the room anyway, and those would go home with people. And then the one interaction piece we would do in person is circle time. So the first 15 minutes, circle time. People on Zoom, they can choose to do the whole thing 100% virtual. They never have to come to class if they don't want to. So we'll have some people on Zoom, and we'll have 4 families in person or none. We have no idea what they'll sign up for. And then we'll have up to 15 minutes for circle time, and then parents, 4 parents only, because we measure it out, that's what will fit in our room, will go into a parent room. And Shelley was there to help also measure that out and figure that out. And then we just bring the parents on Zoom with us into the parent room, and we have a 40-minute, roughly 40 to 45-minute parent discussion. And hopefully, I don't know, we'll see what happens. That's what we've advertised. That's what we're going to try to implement.
And we are offering some outdoor classes. There's 2 groups of wide open spaces, which hopefully will be all outdoors. And then Karen, you're doing one with dads. That sounds like that's going to be mostly outside.
What are your contingency plans, guys, if it's really bad, if it's, pouring rain? I mean, sprinkling rain, we can handle that. But what about really bad weather?
Because, well, partially that specific class is a Thursday night and there's not a lot of people in the school. So we basically have the whole school to ourselves. So if we need to move to the gym, or if we have resources in that building, but that's that one class. There are other classes that are also largely outside. I think our attitude is there's no such thing as bad weather, there's bad clothing. So we want to, if it rains, we'll figure it out. And if we need to go inside, we'll go inside.
I think that's where we're
or we'll Zoom that day. So.
Cool. Yep. And I've followed a couple trainings this summer too that talked about that same thing, that and a lot of the European countries and stuff, they play outside all year round regardless, so, and I think we've got a couple of our parks have some shelter. Obviously we probably couldn't social distance, but like you say, I think we're just going to, and there's another site called Tinker Garden that has some great activities for outside, and I think if it rains, we're just going to make it work, like you say, and play in the rain or jump in puddles or whatever. And unfortunately, I might need to get some new clothing, but
that's what I was thinking.
I might not be prepared, but.
One of the questions you asked was about baby classes being on Zoom only. And that's, I mean, if you can do it outside on a gorgeous day, I think that's awesome. My daughter's expecting, and we got the COVID procedures for parents and family. And so a great list of what their expectations are. And it's really, a lot of the pediatricians are recommending that those babies stay, not want to say isolated, but stay in a very small bubble, and that they get the care they need from their caregivers, but that bubble stays small, and that's it's just a health thing. So that's one of the reasons I think we went into that too, is because of the if you're a baby and you're exposed, it's a whole different story. And
thanks, Karen. Did they give you an age? Did they give you an age range?
The list for my daughter?
Yeah.
No, because it's when the baby comes, can you come into the hospital? It's those kind of questions.
Oh, okay.
Can you come to our house? That kind of thing. So that's it. But that's coming from her peds, and she is a level 1 worker, whatever, and so she has to stay isolated at this time, and does her work at home, just like many parents right now. So.
Well, I think we had a lot of parents of infants that found it way more convenient to just hop on a Zoom versus pack up their stroller in the big giant bag and all the stuff that goes along with bringing a baby out. So it's easier to pop on than get in the car and be all sweaty when you get there.
And I don't think it's one is better than the other. I think we have to look at it as they all have advantages or things that we can pull from, and then we can tap into that. So it's just a matter of which ones are we going to try, which ones are we going to use.
So I have actually, as you guys are talking, I've got a technical question then. Are you recording your Zoom sessions and then archiving them so parents who possibly couldn't attend, or maybe anyway, would be able to view it later? And if so, because I know like the university is giving me language I have to put in my syllabus if I, record anything. So I'm just curious, are you doing that? Are you planning on doing it? Are there challenges to doing that?
I did it this spring. I recorded everything. The class I did recorded circle time separate. So I was there when the early childhood teacher did circle time. I recorded it and then I stopped the recording. And then I started it when the parents were all settled. So there were 2 separate recordings. So if parents only wanted to do circle time or only wanted to do parent time, there were 2 separate recordings, and I uploaded them to a Google Drive. I did not feel comfortable putting them on Facebook, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, even as an unlisted thing. So I put them on in a folder in Google Drive, and then I deleted them the next week. I said, you got 1 week to watch them. If you don't watch them in a week, oh well. And then I deleted it to make room for the next one. And it worked really well. And I asked in my survey if parents watched it, and they said, well, they watched parent time more than they watched circle time. So, and sometimes some of them said, yeah, we did circle time multiple times. So I think it's definitely worth doing.
We started out recording and then getting I believe we got information from the district asking us not to record, and it was just a kind of a safer thing not to do that. I think people felt more okay with talking, and so I stopped recording. I had even thought of recording for fall, but this is a good idea to put this back on my to take a closer look at list.
We put our circle times, group times on Seesaw. So all of our families that registered for class are registered for, in our Seesaw classes too. And so we put our group times on Seesaw, and then any book that we read, our teacher would put that on Seesaw too, like them reading the book together. I did not record the parent discussion time, but I did I would put the notes, and then I would give like a little, little overview of that and stick that on Seesaw so parents could see, and then add the links and stuff to support the discussion that we had. So that's what we did. The Seesaw really helped that out too, because then it was just those people in those classes that got that information.
So is everybody is everybody going to do Zoom this year? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of you that are trying it or that have tried it, or has somebody found something that works better? I know we've discussed this a lot this summer about what's worked and what hasn't, but it sounds like most of you are talking Zoom. So is that probably what you're going to do again this year? Just wondering, because I never found like a great area to use for my parent discussions over the spring. So
we've had a Zoom ECFE class going all summer. This summer, we do a group time, and then I have a parent discussion time. And I mean, not that, and it's been free. It's just a free, like, if you're part of class and you want to be part of it, you can come. And I mean, we've probably not a ton of people, but we average probably like 5 or 6 families that come on that weekly Zoom. So my thought, we're not going to do class, but my thought was that we would have 2 offerings, one Zoom class during the day, one Zoom in the evening. And if you're registered for any of the classes, you can just hop onto those. But yeah, I agree. It's tricky, but at least it's something. We're still getting contact with those families.
I kind of think Zoom, I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a little more user friendly. I mean, for parents, maybe. I guess I'm not sure. Sometimes Google can be kind of, I sometimes struggle with the Google stuff, so I don't know but I don't know. I mean, we just use Zoom, so I don't know much about any of the other ones.
So I guess I have another question. If everybody's going to Zoom, or you use Zoom a lot, did you get some feedback, or did you lose some connection? It just seems like if everybody's using the same program, there would be some trouble. I don't know, maybe not, but yeah, so.
I mean, we used it all spring, and we didn't really have there weren't really any issues for my classes with connection, and so it went really well, and I assume we're doing the same thing with it this fall because it was pretty successful.
It was successful. I think if there were any issues at all, it has to do with the bandwidth of where the person is located and the internet that they're receiving. It's not so much the application, the Zoom app, it's the internet accessibility and strength.
And a drawback, just common to any platform, is if you're joining with your phone, as you probably know, you can only see that one person, versus if you're on a tablet or a computer, you get to see the class. But we used Zoom last spring. Minnetonka supports Google Meet, and so we were encouraged to use that, but we had kind of the out, and they said if it doesn't meet your needs for your class, then you can use something else. So we took that as kind of permission, because we just found Google Meet to be just less user-friendly, harder for parents to reliably get on. So I imagine if we're doing video conferencing again, we'll use Zoom again.
In St. Cloud, we were asked to use only Google Meets, and we didn't get an out, as Jennifer said, so we never did try Zoom. I don't know what's going to happen this fall. Try Zoom with families for ECFE. Are your districts purchasing Zoom for you, the paid version of Zoom, or are you just jumping on with the free version?
I had the free version, and because I signed up with my Minnetonka account, I got the unlimited meeting time.
That's what I had too. And I guess I haven't thought about whether they're still extending that for fall. I mean, I haven't heard anything. So I guess like I said, I've got no direction from our school yet, but I'm hoping we can still use it.
I'm kind of back on the issue of parents maybe not having the right connection speed or whatever. I probably halfway through the session, I started adding the phone number so that parents could call in. And I had quite a few parents who had other kids, elementary kids, who were on their devices at 9 o'clock, who their router couldn't support 2 Zooms.
Yeah.
So I had quite a few. So making sure that you do send out that phone invitation, and it's a lot of number punching. They have to dial the 800 number, and then they have to dial the meeting, your meeting code, and then they have to dial the password. It's a lot of numbers, but it is an option and something that some families. I had one family consistently join via phone, one of my lower income families, and I know that she just didn't have the right resources to be on with the screen, and so I could always tell if she was talking because it turned green. And I had to make sure, hey, do you have anything to add? And, so it worked really well for her.
So a couple, you all know this better than I do, but I've gotten a couple individual questions related to ECFE statutes, and a couple reflections related to sort of school districts and maybe not recognizing early childhood as much in planning and kind of feeling left on the side. So I'd just like to raise that in terms of what you all know in terms of, and if I'm not phrasing this correctly, please correct me, but how the state statutes related to ECFE operations are being maybe reflected or not reflected and need to be in your planning, and also maybe how your own experiences are with sort of feeling included in the district's plans, or is this something that you're feeling more it's up to our office to kind of figure this out?
That's a big question. I'm trying to. I have to.
Yeah, I know.
I have to sort it out.
Just this a couple hours ago, Minnetonka put out their kind of variety of possibilities, that the school board's going to examine in their meeting on Thursday. So we don't know yet, but at least we kind of are starting to get some, some peeks into what their thinking is. And I had really, my bar is set pretty low for how much attention is going to be paid to early childhood. So I was, I guess, a little bit relieved to see we were at least mentioned in almost like 6 of the 7 options that were put out there. So at least somebody's thinking about us or advocating on our behalf. But we'll find out after the board meeting, like, okay, so now really what is this and what do we need to start planning for?
I feel kind of lucky. Our early childhood programs have really been, I think we're getting more recognized as part of the programming. Our preschool programs have actually moved into the elementary buildings now. So they've been there for about a year or 2, so they're making that connection there. Our supervisor is really good about advocating, and I know she's been sitting in on planning meetings. And I had gotten an email actually yesterday that, like you say, when from our Ed Minnesota or our union team saying that they've got 3 or it doesn't seem like very many, but 3 representatives or whatever working with the school board, and they mentioned pre-K through 3rd grade as one of the categories that they have representatives working. So I was like, well, at least we were mentioned there too, like you say. So, but
I have a clarification. I see I understood the directions from the state to include early childhood, which I understood as just pre-K. But you could, when you talk about early childhood, I think you could, looking at the state, make the case that they were only talking about like that 4 or 5-year-old class before the kindergarten year. And my questions are more about, I mean, I am not a director. I don't have any administrative experience. And so if there is a state mandate to provide early childhood family education, what does that do for any birth to 3 program that is, I mean, again, all of us know to keep the bar low and that we have to speak up or people are going to be like, oh yeah, we forgot about you. That all being said, I just feel like it's complicated enough that those families are going to be an afterthought. I'm really concerned about that. And I don't know what I'm asking really, except for, does anybody understand if districts are still required to provide programming for families with kids birth to 3? And if so, how, and I don't know that that's going to happen. What should I do? Maybe is my question.
Looking at,
well,
from what
your district is going to be getting funding for ECFE. Like there is funding, so and it can't be used for anything except for ECFE. So I guess I would ask what that money is going to be spent on. I mean, somebody should be making contact with families with young children.
And it's not a mandated program, so we don't have that to our advantage. It's a choice. It's universal access. So that changes the power balance.
Karen, could you just explain that? That's a really important point, and I just want to make sure the way that I'm interpreting it is the way that you mean that.
Well, when you're not mandated, you don't have to exist. Basically, I mean, that's, and I think people always go where the money is. The money's, it's a different thing. You're right. With our funding, nobody else can use our funding. That's true. But it's still not high priority because it's not mandated. And when you have a mandated program, that's what's top on the list in your district to work on. So that's another reason why we're at the bottom. And it frustrates me being in this field for so long, and it's the same battle. It's been 30 some years, almost 40 years for me, and it's the same story. We're still not always thought of. And we're better, but we got to advocate constantly all the time for I don't know how many years.
Karen,
So,
I
so what you,
completely, sorry, I completely understand your, yeah, your feelings. Yeah, same thing. It's not ever going to stop the fact that we have to keep advocating for ourselves in
Yep.
ECFE. And yeah, so it's not mandated. It is technically a voluntary program that districts opt into to provide those services.
That's right.
And yes, most districts have opted into it. And yes, if you do opt into it and you receive the funding, then yes, you are supposed to provide those services.
Right.
But at the same time, given where people are with funding balances, given the challenges that we're going to be facing in terms of funding across the board in community ed and K-12, I think we just have to be very vigilant in this as people to be able to say, hey, you can't take our money. You can't. And because it will become very, very tempting. And it's just something that we need to be aware of. So if your district isn't offering ECFE, make sure that you're saying, well, then are you taking the money? And if so, where is it going?
Right.
And ask for that accountability.
So I thought they had passed something when, you know, the whole COVID thing hit, that they could actually take that money, the early childhood money, and use it in the general fund. Because I know multiple like early childhood programs that just got shut down, and that money got put into the general fund, like the K-12 fund.
There's different pockets of early childhood money.
Okay.
And I don't know what the COVID plan did, but
Yeah.
there's so many pockets in so many areas. ECFE funding is different than school readiness funding, which is different from, you know, I mean, there's so many funding sources.
Right.
So because they, and I would go back and look and see what did they actually say, because I don't know.
Right.
But if they're taking money, I would look at where is that money coming from and what's that piece. And yeah, if you go back to, we always, as Shannon said, we always have to be standing up and advocating.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been really fortunate here in Big Lake to be included in, I'm the new early childhood coordinator here too, like as of July 1, good times, right? And so,
welcome.
Oh, yeah. And but I've been me. But I've been really fortunate that our district has included me in pretty much every meeting, even the ones I really don't want to be part of. So, but I know, like you're saying, like you're all saying, you have to be at that table, even if like 1% of it actually pertains to early childhood, because they have to know you're there. Like it's my job is just kind of be that poker that lets you know we're here, right?
Yep.
That relationship is so important, so important. And so in my district, we have a brand new superintendent and a brand new assistant superintendent who are not from Minnesota and don't really have any perspective on early childhood programming, especially ECFB. So I'm starting at square one with, it's like we're constantly training our administrators about what we are and our value. So yeah, like you said, Sarah, you have to be at that table, and I'm so glad that they're inviting you. That's awesome.
Well, I think even if we're not invited, I think we have to bring our own chair and sit there. I mean, we have to just keep advocating, because we know the research, and we have to keep spreading that news of what that research tells us. So I think we have to make our voices loud, and it's frustrating. I'm with you, but I think we just have to keep doing it for our kids, for our future.
So we're all lobbyists then, huh? Add another hat to us, right? Was this what the initial question about statutes? Did any of this discussion answer the initial question about statutes?
I was one of those people who asked, and this has been very helpful to me. I think it has helped me understand, and it's encouraging too, to know that I'm not alone, you know, that it isn't just in my district where it feels like a constant job. And so it leaves me feeling like a little more clarification, and maybe even a couple action steps to make sure that the things I was asking about and feeling concerned about in my mind aren't going to be completely let go of. They might still be, but it won't be because I didn't ask somebody or whatever. So thank you for the advice and encouragement.
Do you all feel that you have the resources? Like somebody had mentioned, we know that Cassie had mentioned, we know the research. So do you, when you advocate, when you train your new community ed director, your new superintendent, you've got your 5 minutes of fame at the school board meeting or whatever, do you have like your package, or is this something you have to create each time? Or I'm always curious about what it's like for you all. And there's advocacy, and then there's having your stuff to be a good advocate. Oh, Jen.
That might be an awesome discussion for a whole other hour. Like,
okay.
Like I've never had, I mean, my district right now, like our superintendent loves ECFE, our community ed director is a participant in like I'm super fortunate to be in a district that loves ECFE. But I came from a district that I really had to push pretty hard to be like, hey, I need more than 7 hours a week, you know, to get this job done. But I think that would be an awesome discussion. Like, do you come with charts? Do you come with data? Do you come with brain stuff? Like, I think that's an awesome discussion.
Well, and I would think that whoever's in charge of your program, manager, director, whoever's in charge of your program, your ECFE program would have that. I mean, that's just a packaged PowerPoint that they have available to adjust to at any given time for any given meeting. Mm-hmm. That's my assumption.
Mm-hmm. You would think, Karen, my issue was I had to educate a coordinator who came from Wisconsin in my previous district.
Oh my gosh.
That was really fun.
My heart goes out to you. It's a lot harder, isn't it?
It's kind of why I left.
Yeah.
Susan, you do the research. Is there some good resources out there that are already developed that we should be accessing? I mean, are there some pieces already done that we could be, like you say, putting in a PowerPoint and having that? I don't know if our coordinator does that, but it would be valuable to have at the ready. So you can just say, here's the proof.
So one, I'm going to reflect on what Shannon was saying. So, you know, one is to look at, so Cassie, I'll answer your question, but I think also, you know, if Menafee has had resources from the past or anything that has been packaged, you know, I use the little ECFE videos myself. I know that in Robbinsdale, Monica Potter did a great PR thing. And so I think that there are different, you know, pieces that are out there. And if Menafee has materials from the past, you know, that's a really good resource to tap into. And certainly our effort back 7 years ago or so with the ECFE evaluation was intended to pull together, if not statewide, at least data from, you know, 5,000 or 6,000 families asking the same questions, to be able to put that in an easy, you know, 2-sheet, glossy, nice pictures of families, you know, kind of thing that could be handed to a legislator, right? So there have been those things in the past. In terms of the evaluation or research related to parent education, it's out there. The problem is that ECFE is a different model that very often is used as a basis for those evaluations or those kind of programs. The easiest way I can convey it would be the traditional models are the incredible years, you know, ones like that are very high impact, are very high impact short term. And they're very focused on a targeted population, and they're focused on targeted behaviors. And versus ECFE, that is low dose long term. And it's much more of a community based model. And quite honestly, that's a much, much harder model to demonstrate effectiveness for. And so there is some really interest, I mean, and my own interest in social learning and sort of the community aspect of what ECFE does. I've seen research from Australia because they have a playgroup model that is similar but different than ECFE, but they have government funding that will support, you know, parents coming together with their young children, and what they've looked at are the social capital benefits of that sort of supportive kind of thing, and what that means to changing the individual parent, to empowering that individual parent to go back to school, to continue employment, and all the stuff that you all know as educators, the kind of things that you see as a result of your work. The problem with the traditional way that research and evaluation of parenting education is done in the United States is that it disregards that. It disregards, and I know I'm getting on my soapbox, but it disregards the individual development of the parent, and it focuses on how are we going to change that parent to improve that child. And so yes, it exists, and there is, and I'll share it with the group. It was a really nice public policy document that came out, maybe 10 years ago, but it was about the importance of a public investment in parent education for children and family well-being. And I think that there is enough in that you can plug in any kind of credible parenting education program, you know, is worth an investment. Again, my only thing is that to then cite individual research for the stuff that's been you know, has a rigorous design, and the stuff that everybody gets excited about, the stuff that Art Rolnick loves and things like that, is not the ECFE model. And so that's kind of thing. So I'll come back to Shannon's point about, you know, the, you know, looking at what Menafee might have, and certainly I can, and so I was going to actually tell you guys, I know we're a little bit out of time, but I had a really wonderful honor of being invited by the United Nations to write a background report about the impact of technology on children and families and what it means for parenting education. And so that's my fault. So anyway, but so I appreciate the question, because Cassie, because I'm revisiting a lot of that information right now anyway. I also like the opportunity because it gives me an opportunity to advocate for other models of parenting education around the world, around the countries, and then specifically in Minnesota. But anyway, so sorry, that's a long answer to your very simple question, but so we are a little bit out of time, or over. I just wanted to, so two quick things. So our future meetings, we have next week, and then we also, we have the 18th, and we can take a break and just have a vacation week before we all get crazy and start. And I'm not sure, I might take that day off. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing. If you all want to continue to meet on the 18th, we should do this anyway, and that's to have a backup co-host. And so that way, you know, somebody else can record and do all of that. But right now for next week, we are all good. And then we will be transitioning in the fall. And so one of my main questions for you will be to find a good day and time to continue to meet. In the springtime, we had, we were meeting 2 times a week, and once on a Tuesday and I think on Friday, kind of depending on people's schedules. We can continue to do that. I think just kind of for my own time involved, I think maybe I would prefer once a week. And then if we can land on a time that is good for everybody. Just so a quick question, what would be the best mechanism to identify a good 1 hour that is the best for most people? And again, we're talking like September on.
About a Google form.
Okay.
Or a doodle.
Or a doodle.
Okay. And send that out like through Friends of Family Education and our listserv here, sort of try to get that pretty far and wide. Okay.
And another idea, Susan, just to take the weight off of, you know, take it off of your plate, is to allow people to rotate being host. I don't know if that's an option. It complicates things because your personal meeting ID changes. But if we have a centralized location and we say, all right, this week, this is the, I mean, it complicates things a little bit. It wouldn't be the same login every time, but then we can rotate who can host.
Well, one thing I could do would be to, I don't know if Zoom limits the number of co-hosts, you know, so there could be the central link and then I could add like 10 people or, you know, something like that. You know, I don't know, but we'll, yeah. And then that keeps it open. Okay, good. And then the other thing, and is Christy on or is Christy left? I guess Christy left.
She left.
And okay, so the other thing is, so the last week in August, so Manafi, you may have seen, there was a posting about a professional development thing on September 25th, and that's me. So I don't know whether that's interesting or what, but anyway, so that's that day in Manafi. We're working to have a day-long virtual professional development about technology integration, but more specifically about your programming and for the coming year, and primarily to focus on curriculum and instruction, and a lot of the same kinds of conversations we've been having over the summer, and adaptation, and then about equity and ensuring access for sort of leave no parent behind kind of thing, also for yourselves. And then the third element is on relationships and on building and supporting and maintaining relationships. And I would say that that is, you know, that's parent, you and the parents, but also parent to parent. So that's September. Oh, thank you, Ellen. Yeah, so September 25th is the long one. And I can guarantee you, I do this stuff and instructional design. It will not be 7 hours of sitting at a computer and be really boring. You know, we're going to chunk it up and have small group work and do modeling fun activities and things like that. So now getting back to August. So with Manafi, one thing that we want to do, because that's going to be after or close to when your stuff starts in September, is we're going to host 3 perfect conversations or perfect. I'm pairing our little group with Manafi, and so we'll have 3 one-hour conversations on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon. And each one is going to be focused on one of those 3 topics. And the purpose is this, is so that I want to help identify through conversation what is the most meaningful use of our time together in September. Okay, so we'll be talking about sort of with equity. As I've been doing, and I will share also with you the results of that spring 2020 survey that you all did and had wonderful responses to. It's really interesting stuff. And so if it comes to equity, what does that mean to you? Does that, you know, as we're talking about bandwidth and having 2 Zooms going and families, you know, so is it technology access? Is it internet access? Is it language? Do you have families who need special accommodations? So I think for those of you who don't go to the paid workshop in September, if there are any of you, and you want to join us just for that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or one of those 3, or 2 of those 3, you'll get a lot out of it. It still is our conversation. It still is getting into topics that are relevant to your work. But because you all have been so wonderful and loyal and connected all summer long, I just wanted to let you know sort of the lineup in August, the way that it's kind of shaking out, so that we'll continue to meet the next 2 weeks, but then that last week in August, there will be 3 meetings. You can come to 1, 2, all 3. Each one will be topic-based. And they will likely be larger because Manafi is offering this professional development opportunity. And so rather than having 20 of us, there could be 200. I don't know. Oh, but that brings up one more thing. One more thing is, if you do go to the Manafi workshop on the 25th, okay, And we do have a good number of people that we're doing this through Zoom, and we have breakout groups. I am so going to need facilitators in those breakout groups, right? And so if any of you are planning on attending and would be willing to be a facilitator at one or more of the breakout rooms, and don't worry, it's not a huge, I mean, it's like, you don't have to have a new degree or anything to do it. We'll work it through, but it's just having another pair of hands, another pair of eyes, somebody to facilitate the conversation in the small group. But we'll talk about that later. I just wanted to plant the seed now. Okay, so that's the lineup for August. Our regular groups the next 2 weeks, and then that last week there will be 3 focused conversations in preparation for the larger professional development opportunity. Okay. Whew. All right, everyone, you're all wonderful. Any final words for the group?
Thanks for hosting.
All right. Have a wonderful week. And I hope wherever you are, your weather is as lovely as it is here.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.